All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Life-Undeferred Open Mic. I'm Jared Sebesta. Thanks for joining in here today. Got another great guest lined up for you here today, and we're going to talk about strategic disruption. And I am so excited for you to meet my guest and to dive into this conversation. It's going to be very timely if you are wanting to do a pivot, wanting to make a change, wanting to have more purpose in life. Through your job, your career, your business, maybe start a business, et cetera, et cetera. Those are some of the topics that we're going to cover here today. Some big news coming out in the next couple of weeks for me. I'm doing a full logo brand redesign right now. We're going to have a new website that's going to launch here probably in the first week or two at best, at the latest. For my website, jaredsebesta.com. And I'm doubling down on this idea of Life Undeferred. I want that to be the brand and the company and the platform by which we build going into 2025. So I hope 2025 has been treating you well as we wind down these first couple of days or last couple of days of January. And this is going to be a big year. Like if you're open to it and available to it, this year can be one of those years where you are unrecognizable. Just posted a video the other day on LinkedIn giving you a little taste of a masterclass that I'm going to be giving away for free on my new website. But again, if you're open and available to it, this year doesn't have to be a year of linear growth. It can be of explosive expansion. That's what I'm interested in, and I hope you're interested in that as well. I'm happy to introduce my next guest, TJ Walstead, a friend of mine, cohort, real estate guy, been living in the corporate world, actually heading back into the corporate world to some extent. We're going to hear his story coming up, but we connected on LinkedIn several months ago now, and we just hit it off. It was really fun to connect. So welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me here today.
Jared, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this week, so I'm excited to dive in.
I love it. Give people but before we dive in, give people just a quick little background as to just your resume as to kind of what's been going on with you in the last, couple of years.
Absolutely. So I have been working in real estate the past several years, to answer your question directly. But prior to that, I worked in a corporate capacity at a Best Buy, actually, for 13 years, variety of different roles. I started there as a young punk in retail, worked my way up, climbed, took on a lot of different roles, learned a ton, and developed a lot of skills along the way. But had been investing passively on the side in real estate since about 2013, and then made a transition out of the corporate world back in 2022 to move into real estate full time. Have some lessons learned, and I know we'll get into some of that today, but excited to be exploring a return to that corporate after lessons learned, fulfillment discerned, and lots of interesting bumps and high highs and low lows. There's a lot of great content to dig into.
I love it. We're going to talk about pivots here today. Obviously, you've made some pivots. I've made some pivots in my in my journey over the years, certainly. So let's just get right into it. When I asked you, what should we talk about? You love this idea of disruption, and we're going to talk about strategic disruption for success. When I say strategic disruption, what comes to mind when I say that?
Yes. So I'm a firm believer that there's going to be disruption no matter what. It's what is the catalyst for that disruption? Is it going to come from an outside force like a blockbuster getting thwarted by Netflix? Or is it going to come from an internal disruption that drives to innovation? And so as someone that's worked in the software development space for many years as a product manager, leading tech teams, that innovation is always on the forefront of my mind. How can we disrupt our ways of thinking, identify our biases, and move into an innovative space by being comfortable with being uncomfortable? The more we can push ourselves into that uncomfortable action, the more we will uncover what's necessary to take the next step. I think so many people get stuck in this mentality of, how do I dial everything in, get this exactly right, and tweak every little dial before I take action? And that couldn't be further from the right path from my point of view when it comes to making a change that's truly in line with your values and staying relevant in whatever your domain is. So disruption is coming one way or the other. It's how are we going to get there? And would you like to do that on your terms or someone else's terms?
Dude, I love it. You're speaking my love language here, because that's chapter 1 of my book is, in fact, chapter 1 is actually titled, "You Are the Life Altering Moment." That's the first line of my book. You will experience life altering moments. Now, they can come as externals or they can be something engineered to default. Let's just talk about that just a little bit. It always leads to innovation. Isn't that interesting? Like if you can like disrupt this guy, bam, there's explosive growth. Where have you seen that not only in your career, but like in your worlds that you've worked?
Sure. And by the way, your book is in the mail. I'm excited to dive in. So
awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. So your question is, where have I seen that represented? I think there's this quadrant graph. It's kind of like a SWOT analysis graph. It's a 4-box diagram. Up in the top left, there's known knowns. And in the bottom right hand, there's unknown unknowns. And so whenever you're working on something highly disruptive, unknown unknowns are really what I'm trying to uncover. They're the things that you don't understand. And there's a naivety that you don't even know you don't understand them. And so this is the domain where you would hire someone like, I consult on the side as a real estate investing coach. This is where you would hire a mentor or a fitness coach or a business coach, right? Is how do we uncover the unknown unknowns? And so when we talk about being a disruptor or leading through innovation, it's about getting exposure to those things that we're not just aware of that we know we need to tackle. Those things can be delegated. Those things can be learned. We can study those things. But how do we get to the unknown unknowns, the stuff that isn't even on our radar, so that we can start attacking things that are true 10x, 20x type movements that need to be made in order to really drive innovative change?
I think if you are only interested in what you know, you're narrowing your vision to just a tiny sliver. I did a webinar a couple of months ago. I talked about like living beyond the 1%. And when we only get caught in what we know, I don't want to say you're not growth minded, but you are limiting your ability for where these miracles take place. And people that are caught in the 1%, they're basing their future. We talk about having like an unrecognizable 2025. You're basing it on what you know right now, but you don't know what you don't know, to your point. And so, you mentioned like hiring a coach or bringing a consultant or something like that. Like that's the beauty of this life. Like I almost kind of wake up now, like, God, how are you going to blow my, what's going to come into my path that's going to open up this thing? And when I can open up this thing, that's where it happens. Besides coaches, life-altering events, like how else can we tap into that unknown? Do you have any say on that?
Ooh. Well, I'm a huge proponent of reflection. In the software development world, we call it a retrospective. And I'm a firm believer that very few, whether it's journaling or some other mode of reflection, I'm a firm believer that far too few people reflect on not just their failures, but their successes and actually dissect what happened. What was fulfilling about that? How did we arrive at this point? What was I feeling as I was going through this? So, if you're trying to exclude pulling in an outside, voice like a mentor or a coach, looking inward can be a huge point of self-reflection that leads to a deeper understanding of a why, of a purpose, of a momentum that maybe you had an idea of, but didn't fully wrap your arms around it. And that's kind of how I'm steering back into my corporate career. It's not that, if you've been in real estate the last couple of years, like I have, and I'm a multifamily syndicator as well as a coach, it's been a little bumpy. We're still closing deals and raising money and investing in real estate, but man, I mean, you're seeing me in my home office here. This is where I work. I peck away on the keyboard at pro formas all day long, and it's highly uncollaborative. And so for me, I learned that this idea of maximum collaboration, being with smart people, being with, innovative ideas, working in large groups, many times in person, is extremely personally and professionally rewarding to me. And I wasn't getting that in this capacity. And I'll continue to invest in real estate for many times, but I am myself amidst of my own disruption right now. And so I'm excited for that. And I've been through enough transitions that I can see beyond the immediate change or pain or discomfort of my current situation and be excited about having the clarity that I have. That's the real gift in this, is the clarity.
Yeah. But it takes you getting used to feeling that uncomfortable feeling and trusting in that. I always talk about how the uncomfortable feeling will trigger fear. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's usually an indicator that you're probably on the right track into something much bigger. You did that now. a couple of times, but talk about when you left your corporate job here and dove into real estate. You can look back now, probably not a great time. How were you able to be aware of those feelings, but still take those steps where you chose to do this? It was a manual disruptor, but to articulate those feelings, understand what they were and what they were trying to lead you into. How would you describe that mental exercise?
It's a beautiful confluence of what you just said around fear, right? Whether it's public speaking or looking at my little camera dot here in front of however many people this podcast makes itself in front of, confidence is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. Mm-hmm. I had a cushy job, I don't know who's going to watch this. It wasn't that cushy. It was still hard work, but it was relatively secure. It was stable. I mean, people, talk crap about working a 9-to-5. Guys, there is a lot of money to be made, a lot of stability to be earned. I got a young family. We've got mouths to feed. My boy went through an incredibly serious medical condition earlier this 2024 last year. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of positives to some stability in a
nice W-2 paycheck every 2 weeks, right?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So steer me back here. Where was the root of your question?
What was the mental exercise when you went through that? How were you able to do that with the children and the unknown? Because a lot of people, they feel drawn for more, but they feel that feeling and then they stop. How do we get ourselves to, and I'm not even saying quit your job, but whatever the next move is for you.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a deeper why. And so leaving corporate America was not an escape from something punishing. It was a bigger purpose. And the bigger purpose for me, which came with its own set of learnings and reflections, and we can get into some more of those, was I wanted to attempt to go hard into real estate, right? I was all the way over here, climb the corporate ladder. I swung all the way over to buy real estate and grow. And the why behind that was I want to live on more of my own terms, right? And so some of that came from some financial gains. We were making plenty of money in corporate America, but I wanted to get to a passivity that comes through cash flow that gives me even more ability to live life where I want, when I want, with whom I want, for however long I want to. That's a definition of financial freedom, in my opinion. And so that was my why. Now, I learned that there might have been even some bigger whys behind that are steering me back to my current pivot. Doesn't mean that was a bad jump to make. I'm very thankful for that. And I feel like I learned 10 years worth of stuff in 2.5, 3 years because of the pace at which we were operating. But the ability to make that, call it an S-curve jump, the idea of leaping from one branch to another branch, but releasing the previous branch, that's a tough jump to make.
Yes.
It's made a lot easier when you have a very compelling why behind the action to jump.
Look back, I know what you're going to say here, but what if you didn't do it? What if you didn't jump? Talk about and it's impossible to measure, but when you make the disruption, when you choose to make the disruption, it's like, boom, now all of a sudden there's a new trajectory in your life, albeit difficult. When you look down the pathway of time, you're in a different location. You could say, one could argue, and I'm not suggesting this, but it was a failed attempt because you're heading back into corporate America. And I know what you're going to say. It's false because I'm now a new person because of those decisions. People need to hear that. Talk about
I'm reborn. Absolutely.
Yeah, because when we never jump, the jumping creates the growth. And so I look back at some of the stuff, even the bananas things that I've done, and on paper they look like failures, but they're not. Talk about that for a second, because people need to hear that too. When you jump, even to the unknown, if it turns out a failure, is it really? How would you describe that?
The first thing that leads to mind, I feel like I'm pulling up in some trite quotes here, but you're going to live with one of two pains. You're going to live with the pain of discipline, or you're going to live with the pain of regret. Mm-hmm. And if I never made that jump, I might have wondered forever if I could have made it in real estate, or that this was the passion I wanted to spend the next 15, 20 years. And by the way, we'll continue to invest in real estate. And if there are any of my limited partners watching, your investment is safe and secure and everything's performing well. But I've learned that the source of my fulfillment is in places that were both forgotten and in new places that I'm ready to discover. And it isn't a failure. You're absolutely right. I learned a tremendous amount of lessons. I have so much context and better appreciation for people in this space, entrepreneurs. When the buck stops with you and you've got young kids at home and you're the one putting the food on the table, like there's a renewed set of urgency that comes from that. I'm not saying that people in, a 9-to-5 don't understand urgency. Of course, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. When I think back to when I left my TV career, to your point, there was nothing forcing me out. It was paying the bills. There was nothing. It was what it was, but it didn't change. I changed. I just wanted more. And I'm really proud of myself at 35 years old with 2 kids and one on the way that I had. I'm proud of that guy that he did that. Not because like, hey, I'm sticking it to the man and I'm going on my own. That was never the case. And for those of you who followed me, I never said that. I never felt that. But it was the faster I can jump into something new that is a huge pattern disrupt, or disruption that we're talking about here, the faster you grow. It kind of goes back to like fail fast. I've heard that a lot. I never fully understood that, but now I'm understanding that now for 2025, like I'm racing into throwing myself at different projects, even though I don't feel ready, because I'm understanding that this is the golden ticket to unlock what you said at the very beginning, which was to unlock the things I don't know, and I don't even know that I don't know. That's how we get there. I love that. I love this. I love this conversation.
Fail fast and defer risk or mitigate risk. That's the piece that I maybe like. That's the tag on to that line after the last several years.
Yeah. So talk about that just a little bit too, because as you go now back into corporate America, you're a little bit smarter, a lot more evolved, more wisdom. Mm-hmm. What's your why between going back into the place that you left? Talk about that just a little bit more.
The quick answer is personal and professional fulfillment. There's a podcast with Chris Williamson, and I can't remember who the person is he was interviewing, but he talks a lot about how you discover your passions along your journey. You're not gobsmacked in the face like, this is my passion normally, right? You go to a college campus and you ask a kid, what do you want to do with their life? I want to be in project management, right? Like, no, you don't. You don't understand what project management is, There's a naivety there.
Right.
But he talks about the fulfillment that comes from being highly competent at something and being recognized for your competency. And that is something that I took for granted. Working in the software development space, I had developed a set of very strategic competencies that were very appreciated in that domain. And I didn't realize how much life I received from words of encouragement. It's very lonely to be here at a home office. It's not just that there's an absence of people, it's that there's an absence of discussion and ideas that get injected. And so I'm very much excited to get back into those passions that come from working collaboratively with people. Of course, there's going to be things that you don't like about corporate America. There's, no situation's perfect, but I'm so excited to get back into the vein where there are many. You have finger guns and 300 people on a daily basis at this Best Buy campus. It was huge. There's 4 buildings. There's this giant hub area. I mean, I underestimated that by a long shot.
Sure. That's interesting. Let's start to land this plane just a little bit. This has been a great conversation. There's many more topics we could cover, but not everybody on this call should quit their W-2 job. Not everybody on this should go start a business. Not everybody should jump into entrepreneurship, right? Maybe some people have been dabbling with it and now are contemplating going back into it. What are some tangible ways that we can create the disruption without just jumping ship into the unknown? Yes. What are some more tangible, tactical, daily ways that are kind of get people to start to feel and be comfortable with that feeling?
Iterative action every day or every week is a good, quick, practical answer. I invested in real estate on the side for 10 years before I made a jump. Not a lot of people see that. Yeah. I invested in millions of dollars worth of real estate before I had decided to take an exit from my corporate career to run our business full time. Yeah. So this idea of fail fast is made possible by frequent and consistent iteration. It's just like going to the gym, right? You need to go to the gym consistently if you're going to see the results that you want to see. Yeah, I know you're into fitness. I'm steering back into that domain myself. It's been a wonderful rediscovery of my personal health. It aligns very much with one of my top 4 goals in life right now, which is age-defying health. That's a big focus for me right now. I put on some weight in my corporate career, and I'm not going back there. So, but taking iterative and consistent action each and every day to prove out the things that you think you're accomplishing, and then look back and pair it with that retrospective to make sure that it's doing what you think it's doing. I would say I even moved too fast, even after 10 years of investing, to move out of corporate, just because it was such a big change comparative to the even 10 years of action. There was more to learn before I, maybe could have justified making that move. And there were external forces that, led us to that decision.
Would you ever have been ready looking back? Like what could you have done differently to make you ready besides just actually pivoting and doing it and jumping?
I think going back to another piece we discussed briefly, which is this idea of unknown unknowns, I would have put another couple experts in my situation with me to get their advice. And I had, of course, involved some. I mean, I spent $60,000 on a real estate education in its various forms. That's master classes, guru courses, conferences, you name it. This was not for lack of investment. And like you said, market timing was challenging. There are other headwinds that you face, and you're never going to get it right. So the idea of consistently taking action, then reflecting back on what was accomplished, what was learned, that's how you're going to make iterative progress week in and week out.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because for somebody who's maybe working a corporate job and they want to go be a real estate investor, you have to become that person to some extent before you make that jump. You don't make the jump and then all of a sudden you're just because I put entrepreneur on your Instagram profile, you are one, you know what I mean? So I think to your point, it's not developing a side hustle. It's like make incremental steps to become that person. So when you feel that the time is right or the nudge is there, you're ready. I would say my last, after TV, I worked a W-2 job in the financial world. I walked away from that last July, and the job never changed. It really it was what it was. It was a great job, steady Eddie, just like TV was. I changed, but I took incremental steps to change. And it wasn't that I was developing my side hustle. I was, to your point, taking steps to really stepping into who I really truly was. And once that true authentic self started to emerge, then there was I felt the separation. And then you get to a point where, again, now I'm doing this company a disservice, and I'm not being able to perform to what it's called me to do, vice versa, because there's less alignment there. I love the word alignment, by the way. I think people will hear this. They'll feel when you're out of alignment. Now you're stepping into that zone where maybe you're ready to kind of start having that internal dialogue to make that shift. What from that just resonates with you?
It's the alignment to your purposes, and then being able to recognize when you're deviating from your why. That's what happened to me. That's the reason I ended up climbing too fast in corporate, is I deviated from my why. My 4 kind of life goals, call them right now. I'm not sure if you know MC Lobsher, Cash Flow Ninja. He's got a cool podcast. Okay. I found it in my financial discoveries, but he's got this cool 4-tier life goal set that I've very much adopted. And that's age-defying health, daily dedication to passion and purpose, soulful and fulfilling relationships, and unlimited income streams, in that order. So I'm caring about my health. I'm caring about my passions. I'm caring about my family, my immediate relationships, my faith. And then I'm worried about my finances. And so when I started to deviate from that path, those goals were written down before I left corporate America. Yeah. And I had some self-reflection that steered me back to those. And I can get those things in working part-time real estate, full-time corporate, somewhere on that spectrum. As long as I'm staying true to those values that I'm trying to go after, those life goals, I can live I can be living my best life from any place. That's great. I love that. And I think at the end of the day, you are becoming more of you. It doesn't mean that you're a full-time entrepreneur, full-time corporate. I think that's what I want people to hear. Yeah. I think people think that for me to be balling, I want to be a baller. Like what I see on Instagram and stuff is I have to be an entrepreneur. Not necessarily. The journey isn't into entrepreneurship. The journey is into me fulfilling my greatest, most authentic, highest, most abundant self. And that can look like 1,000 different ways. True or false? 100% true. So hard to hear. Yes. Snake oil exists in many, many places.
I love that. I love that. Brother, let's start to land this plane. Where can people find you? I know you're on LinkedIn for sure, but where's the best place to get in contact with you and what you're doing?
Professionally, LinkedIn's wonderful. You can grab a call with me through my Book Now link. I'm on Instagram at TJ_Walstead. Those are the best two places to find me. If you comment on this video, you want to get a hold of me, I'm happy to reach out and we can get connected through LinkedIn. Those are the two best places to find me.
Name of the podcast that had those 4 life goals. What was that again?
Cash Flow Ninja. MC Lobsher. He's got a book. It's on my shelf over there called The 19 Best Niches of Cash Flow. Okay. Real estate was very much one of those. Great book, great resource, incredible podcast.
Let's make sure me or you or somebody watching this like post that in the comments, because that is really cool. I love that idea. And again, it goes back to this idea. You doesn't have to look corporately or professionally a certain way, just as long as those things are coming to fruition. I love that.
Absolutely.
Dude, brother, I appreciate this. Thanks for your time today. Let's do a part 2 sometime. I love this, but thanks for joining me today. I love this.
It'd be my pleasure, Jared. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you soon.
Let's talk soon. See you, buddy. I love that. TJ Walstead, great guy. And so just some great information there. I love that. I hope that you found some value out of this. I love this idea of whether you have to jump ship or not is kind of irrelevant. Are you taking incremental steps to step into the uncomfortable? Anything that makes you uncomfortable, get used to that feeling. And you will start to see the things that you don't know, you'll start to know and understand. That's where the growth and expansion, in my opinion, I take it spiritual. That's where like the miracles and the blessings start to happen, where these things come out of nowhere, on a daily basis. I love that. Appreciate you guys tuning in here today. Love you guys. Let's do it again some other time, shall we? But thank you for joining me on this episode of Life Undeferred Open Mic. We'll see you next time.